Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 187.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. About a month ago, I discovered a new book titled From Hack to Scratch. And it's about the journey of a golfer who went from a 15 handicap to a +3 and then to winning a club championship. It's a great book, but Joshua Medcalf is way more than a golfer. He's written valuable books, including Pound the Stone, Burn Your Goals, and his worldwide best-selling book, Chop Wood, Carry Water. He's also the founder of Train to be Clutch, a heart-centered leadership and mental training group. Well, about a week ago, I was delighted when Joshua agreed to do this interview with me, and you will be delighted by what you learned from him today.
Taking your game to new heights. www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 187 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. And it's a real delight to welcome Joshua Medcalf today. Joshua is an entrepreneur who founded Train to be Clutch, which is a business and life consultancy through which he works with top performers all over the world. But he also founded and started a nonprofit that trains athletes in one of the toughest housing projects near his home in Los Angeles. He's written a number of really great books, but the most recent one has, and that's not fair. All of them have information related to playing your best golf. But the latest one is From Hack to Scratch, from a vanity handicap, and I thought that was interesting, that word, of 15 to a +3 in 5 years. But also his favorite book, and one of the ones that I read that I thought was really great, which is Pound the Stone. So this is going to be fun to do. Joshua, thanks for taking the time and agreeing to do this with me.
I'm excited to be here with you today, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. We could talk for an hour about your story, but talk a little bit about kind of your personal story and, kind of what's got you to here.
Yeah, so I'll try and condense it down a little bit more to the golf side of things. But, I grew up really poor. My dad grew up in a trailer park, we had to duct tape his trailer together. I can vividly remember being 6 years old, dreaming about Happy Meals. And then he worked really hard and actually ended up becoming an eye surgeon. So I lived on both sides of the socioeconomic class status, whatever you want to call it, growing up. Super poor whenever I was young. Then by the time I was 17, I got an offer for a 10% soccer scholarship at Vanderbilt, and my dad was able to pay the 90% for me to be able to go there. It was a stretch. Back then it was around $5,000 a month to go there, but they were able to pull that off. And I was a very good athlete growing up, but loved golf, didn't really touch a club until I was 13, went to a really cheap, summer camp for a couple days. I think the camp cost like $25, and that was where my brother and I got introduced to it. But again, it was hard. We didn't have access to a country club. We didn't have places where we could play and practice for free. And so we'd try and go out, like once a month and just whack the ball around. And I kind of was fascinated by the game, but again, it was just really expensive, and I was spending a lot of time focusing on soccer at that point. Ended up playing 3 years at Vanderbilt. They cut our soccer program. Was really talented, but I was a head case, so I had kind of mediocre statistics over those 3 years. But everybody kind of considered me to be one of the better players on the team. And it was kind of frustrating to them and me, like, why am I not able to perform at the level that I know that I'm capable of? So they end up cutting our program. I hang up my cleats. I'm going to focus on school. And a year later, I go out for the club soccer team. The club team cuts me. Then 3 months after that, I get a call from Joe Germanis, who had played on our team but transferred to Duke. And he says, hey, are you interested in coming to play at Duke? And I was like, I think a better question is the number one team in the country interested in a guy who got kicked off the team 5 times in 2.5 years, who had mediocre statistics, and who just got cut from a club team? But sure enough, they had a guy that had gotten injured, and he had kind of vouched for me. And so I ended up getting a full ride to play on the number one team in the country. But then when I got to Duke, I was really struggling. I'm now playing with and against some of the best players in the country. When we play pickup games, I would routinely find myself the very last pick on the team. And so I was taking this sports psychology class that they had at Duke by a guy named Dr. Greg Dale. And he told us that he thought sports were over 70% mental. That was incredibly hard for my brain to comprehend, because if sports were over 70% mental, then why had no one taught me how to train mentally? I had done all this physical training, but nobody had taught me how to train mentally. And so I was really upset, and I didn't want to believe it. I was also kind of looking at him, and I was like, this guy can't do the stuff that he's talking about. He's never played sports at a high level. Like, he's just regurgitating stuff that he's read in a book.
Yeah. And
I didn't want to believe that it was true, but simultaneously I was the last pick on the team, and I felt like I was pretty desperate and I didn't have anywhere to go but up from there. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to attempt to do what this guy's talking about. And in a very short period of time, that season, my final year, I went from being the last pick on the team to being the Duke Student Athlete of the Week, ACC Player of the Week, and finishing second in points on that team at Duke to the best player in the country, Mike Grella. And so I had this transformational experience when applying sports psychology. And then I got even more mad, because I was like, why did I have to get to Duke to learn this? Why didn't I learn this growing up? And so I kind of made it my personal mission that I wanted to take what I had learned and find out as much as I could about it, but also take it to places where it wasn't getting taught, take it to the masses. And so I skipped scholarships to law school, moved across the country, downtown Los Angeles, to live and serve in a homeless shelter. Did that for 7 months, was coming up and formulating the idea for Dream Sports Academy. And then I started going into the toughest housing projects down in South Central and Imperial Courts, started training the athletes there. Then I actually kind of pivoted at that point, because I realized that I was doing a lot of physical training with them, and there were a lot of people that did that, and I really wanted to focus on the mental side of things. I was doing some of that with them, but I'm a little bit unstructured. And so me and the projects, it wasn't great. There was way too little structure. It was around that time that I created Train to Be Clutch, and I started focusing on trying to teach and share mental training. Eventually, Corey Close at UCLA reached out, asked me if I'm interested in, doing something around mental training with the team. Eventually, I become the director of mental training for them. Then I started doing workshops. I start traveling around the country, and I started working with a lot of golf programs. And for the first time, I started getting access to good coaching and good golf courses. And so I just fell in love with the game, was trying to play and practice as much as I could. But I just struggled, and I've always battled the hosel shanks. And at one point it got so bad where I was putting from inside of 150 yards. It had just gotten to that point. And so I first started working with Greg Town, who's the head women's golf coach at Indiana State, and become one of my close friends. And he kind of helped me get over that. And so all of a sudden, that next summer I shot a 69. It's still to this day one of the best scores that I've ever shot. And so then But then I started, I moved to San Diego 5 years ago, and I started playing in money games. And I started to realize how quickly that, that's why I say the vanity handicap, because golf is such a weird game at the amateur level. At the professional level, it's supposed to be this super, super game of integrity where everybody, it always is. It's supposed to be the game of integrity. And at the amateur level, there's almost nobody that plays straight up. You have guys that either inflate their handicap because of money games, or you have guys that do the opposite and they have a vanity handicap, and their handicap will never hold up under pressure. And so it's so fascinating because there's, depending on the types of games that you play in, you just have this wide spectrum of people that go hard right or hard left typically. Yeah. And so I had realized, oh, wow, I cared a lot about becoming a single digit handicap. But what does that mean if you can't do it under pressure? And so I started trying to take a lot of the stuff that I had worked on with professional golfers, collegiate golfers, and applying it in my own game. And it was the first time I joined a country club and started working really hard. And it was a long process of learning how to do that. But then this last year, all of a sudden, something really clicked. And I started working even harder. I was getting in the gym. I was trying to add length, as well as, working on putting and short game, and everything kind of came together at the right time. And I ended up winning our club championship after having shot low gross at one of the most prestigious tournaments in Southern California. And so I just had this really cool experience again with golf, where I saw, like, okay, it's frustrating sometimes whenever you teach this stuff, because I always feel like, whether it was at UCLA or whether it's with, friends of mine that I've worked with, I'm like, give me the club, give me the ball, let me go do this. Like, yeah. I'd rather be the person that takes the blame or and has the responsibility of actually hitting the shot. And so it was kind of fun. It was my first ever individual tournament I played in for that club championship. And so getting to see this stuff that I've taught for 10 or 15 years, once again, come back and be the difference between, winning and losing. It was a lot of fun.
So you said something really clicked, and I'm curious about what that really meant to you. And because obviously you just kept working on, let's go back to one of the things that you say in the book, the power of doing the unremarkable with remarkable consistency. I mean, is that part of, right? I mean, anybody that wants to get great should like eat those words up. Okay. But is that part of what sort of led to this something really clicking, or, just a whole bunch of things?
Yeah, I definitely think I didn't realize how well my training had prepared me for tournament golf. So I have a map that I'm sitting beside right now that's in the middle of my living room. It's about probably 12 to 14 feet long, and it rolls at about a 14 or a 15. And so that's what I'd always practiced on for the last probably 3.5 years. And so sometimes in regular games, when the greens aren't lightning quick, I'd struggle with putting. But what I noticed is that in tournaments, when they had the greens at around a 13, that's whenever I made a lot of putts. And so that was one of the aspects of something that clicked, of just under pressure, all of these things coming together, all the matches that I played in. I played in a lot of $1,500 matches, and I lost a lot of them, and it was really frustrating because I felt like, how am I losing to these guys? And again, it's with handicaps, and so it's frustrating there because you're dealing with, well, is this guy a sandbagger, or what's, all the things that go into handicaps and the handicap system, which I'm probably isn't the best thing to say on a podcast, but I do get really frustrated because all of these guys at country clubs, especially, that, vote Republican, yet as soon as they drive through the gates of a country club, all of a sudden they won all their handicap and all their strokes and all their handouts. And so it's like, hey man, if you believe in pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, why don't you apply that to golf?
Yeah.
It's just a kind of side note there, but yeah, it just, everything started to come together. With my swing, I'd been battling the shanks again this summer, and there was something, Sam, my best friend, who's one of the best players and teachers around, he taught me something about, if you'll pull the handle down, and it's not going to be the same for everybody, but like if you can really just feel like you're pulling the handle, and that should help you with not being able to hit the hosel. And all of a sudden, not only did it help me a little bit with, iron shots, what it did is it something clicked with my driver, and all of a sudden I just added a pretty significant amount of distance. I was getting on average about 15 to 20 yards more. So that happened. But then I really think what happened is that I had put myself under so much pressure every single time I played. I took it so seriously.
Yeah.
I wanted to win so bad that then all of a sudden when I played in this club championship, I really was able to surrender the outcome, which is a big concept that I talk about in Chop Wood, Carry Water, and just go out and have fun and then go out and enjoy it and really just trust my training, be in the moment and live with the results, love the shit out of whatever happened. And it was funny because all these guys that are better players than me, I would never say that I'm even in the top 10 players at our club because there's so many players that are so much better than me. I think that they were really trying to squeeze, the water, right? Like if you hold water in your hands, like you got to hold it kind of gently. Like you squeeze too tight, it's just going to squirt out. And in that environment, I saw guys that are really good kind of struggle under that pressure. And I think it's because they were trying to control the moment instead of just be in the moment and trust their training and operate with that joy. And so just kind of all these different things all at the same time just really came together for me.
Now, do you now that that's happened, I guess maybe you're still playing some of these big money matches. Is that different for you now? Has it become different?
Well, part of what I did actually is I realized this summer that, you know what, I don't want to keep doing that. Like I want to try and get, because it goes back to that issue of when you're dealing with these handicaps, what ends up happening is people aren't actually trying to get as low as they can. Yeah. They're trying to win, and whatever they have to shoot, that whole saying of never make a putt, you don't have to. Like there's just all this weird stuff. And so I kind of took a step back and said, you know what, I don't want to play in some of these games because I think that they're disincentivizing getting better. They're really not helping people get better. It's the same guys I've been playing with, for 3 or 4 years, and everybody stays within the same 2 or 3 shots all year long. It's like nobody's really pushing the envelope there. So that was part of it too, is that I kind of stepped out and I said, you know what, I don't want to play in these games anymore. I want to really try and see how good I could get. So with gambling, I think it's different. I think gambling's great for putting you under pressure, but I don't believe that it prepares you in the same way for tournament golf, because I think tournament golf is so different, especially stroke play. But even match play, like there's just so many different variables that go into something like that. And so that's more what I started trying to focus on this summer leading up to that.
Yeah. Now I thought when I kind of looked back this morning, one of the interesting things that you said early in the book is don't worry where you are in golf. Is that sort of where you started from, or did you just learn that, or there was kind of advice to people, right?
Yeah, no, without a doubt. It's don't worry about where you're at, just focus on getting better, because too often, we compare where we're at to where somebody else is at instead of like, dude, everybody is in a different situation in life. Like I basically retired, 3.5 years ago. I have time to be able to do stuff. I don't have kids. I don't have a family. I just got a puppy a few weeks ago, and but even that shifted my life and my priorities right now. And so everybody is at a different spot. And so don't worry about where you're at. if you'll do the stuff that I write about and from Hack to Scratch, I really think that you can get pretty significantly better, because most people aren't training in ways that are actually beneficial to their game. They train in ways that more make them feel better when they practice, but they don't actually help them get better. And so don't worry about where you're at. Just focus on putting in the work and then just watching the results that come.
Yeah, my game's been interesting in that light, because I've just got, I used to break 80, I don't play a lot, maybe 40, 50 times a year, but I haven't broken 80 for maybe 6 months. And I attribute that some to being under a lot of pressure with a lot of other things. But I think over the last couple months have tried to adopt kind of what you're saying is, I see some things improving in short game and just letting go of score parts and all that. But you just can't expect that to come right away. You just have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and trust that if you do the right things, it'll happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to training and practicing. I mean, I think that, the chapter in the book that got so much turmoil that came after it from some of the Scott Fawcett people of 12 feet and in, it's amazing just if you're rolling putts every single day and all of a sudden you make, 2 or 3 putts that you're not used to making, well, then that can give you some momentum. It can also free up your swing, because you don't think, oh man, I got to hit this close because that's the only way, that I'm going to get a par or that I'm going to get a birdie. And then the same thing with what we're doing on the, the range, whenever we're practicing our swing, really being deliberate about doing random practice every single shot, the same way that happens on the golf course, instead of just doing block practice and letting player B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all the way down the alphabet, letting all those guys get reps that those guys never get to play. Occasionally player B is going to get to play, but we're training the wrong people. And then when we sit out there and we hit the same club and same shot over and over and over again, we're just giving ourselves a false sense of security, a false sense of confidence, and a false sense of expectation of, oh, this is what I'm capable of doing. Sure, yeah, if you have a bucket of balls and there's no, hazards, there's no context, there's no actual number that you're hitting it to, it's easy. But when you're just talking about player A and player A is the only one that gets to play, well, that's the guy that needs to be training. And a lot of times, what we really need to be doing is it's not actually our swing, it's the feelings of uncomfortability that we have whenever we're out on the course. That we just have to learn how to become more comfortable being uncomfortable. Because guess what? When you're on the range or anywhere and you hit a bad one, the first thing that you want to do is hit another one. But guess what? Whenever you're playing in a tournament and when you're playing in a round, it may not be 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 7 minutes sometimes before you get to hit another one. You hit a bad drive, but that stays in bounds, and it might be 45 minutes to an hour and a half before you hit another driver. I remember watching Jordan Spieth yesterday, and he was, I'm pretty sure he was on hole 18, and it could have been the Saturday round, but he said he pulled out his driver, and he said, well, we haven't hit driver since, it was like 4 holes back. Well, in a tournament, and 4 holes, that could be an hour and a half,
Yeah.
That's a long time to never touch that club again. And you have to deal with those feelings versus being on the range and just getting to hit another one, getting to hit another one, getting to hit another one. Like that's not teaching you how to deal with those feelings of uncomfortability.
That's definitely for sure. Now, but one of the other things that you say in the book, and I've heard so many people talk about it, but it's so important for anybody playing, is the illusion of control and what you can control and what you can't, and how important that is to playing. I mean, just whatever your best golf is that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing some of the stuff that we think that we can control. And, and listen, I get just as frustrated as anybody else does whenever I feel like I've done everything, to the best of my ability, and I get a bad result based off of, having done all the process stuff well. But you just can't control certain things. And the more that what I really tried to talk about in the book and what I really tried to do in that tournament was just love the shit out of the hard stuff. Love every bounce. Just, you can't control it, so I might as well love it. I might as well be telling myself, ooh, that's an opportunity for special. Ooh,
yeah, I remember those words.
That's an opportunity for special. Yeah, like instead of, oh, God, I just can't, that's such a terrible bounce. Like, I can't believe that. Like, and I get it. I'm as competitive as any person I've ever met in my entire life. I'm a competitive freak. But I just realized that that's just not, it's not beneficial. It's not constructive. It's not going to help us come closer to playing to our actual potential, because what I've also realized is that it's not usually the first mistake or the first bad bounce that gets us in big trouble. It's usually the next one. It's usually the next mistake. And the next mistake is usually controllable. Am I forcing it, or am I taking the medicine? Am I so frustrated that I subconsciously want this to screw over my entire round, instead of like, okay, well, guess what? I've holed this shot before. I've hit an incredible recovery shot from here before. Maybe it cost me a shot, but what ends up happening for most of us is it doesn't cost us a shot. It ends up costing us 2 or 3 shots, and then it becomes a snowball, and then our emotions go, and then we just, throw in the towel, and we basically give up. And so instead of just really letting go of that illusion of control, and again, those false expectations that come from how you hit a ball in the driving range, and thinking that that's somehow going to translate to the golf course and in tournaments, letting all that go, just dealing with what you have that day. What swing do you have that day? Maybe you don't have your best swing. Maybe you got to adjust. Maybe you're used to hitting cuts, and all of a sudden you're hitting draws on every single shot. Then, well, that's what I got this day, and I'm going to adjust. I'm going to use this. Some days my putter is I can't miss, and I think I'm the best putter in the club. And there's other days where I am not that good of a putter. And so it's like, okay, well, I need to adjust. I need to figure out, okay, how do I put myself in better situations? And just constantly adapting, instead of going back to this illusion of how I hit it on the driving range, or that, oh, I can control this, or, oh, I can hit this shot because 1 out of 50 times I'm able to hit it, and just playing within yourself.
Yeah. Well, there are probably 15 or more other things in the book that, hey, listeners, read this book, okay? But since you said, I thought it'd take a little bit of time to let you talk a little bit about Pound the Stone, but also, burn your goals. When I read Pound the Stone, it's interesting how it impacted me, because, and I'm not going to say what the story ended up being, but I'm reading it and I thought, well, is it going to end sort of there? And do you know what I mean? It's like there's more and there's more and there's more, and he has to do more and he has to do more, and he has to trust that it's all going to work out. Do you understand? I'm sure you understand it, because I think that's probably why you like the book, and that you just you just have to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, and then things happen, almost like you said in the beginning. Get something click. Talk about why that was your favorite. Well, the reason why, so I've published 9 real books. There's other ones that are training manuals and things like that, but I've published 9 books, and Pound the Stone is far and away my favorite book that I've ever written. It came from there's a poem by Jacob Riis. It says, you go look at a stone cutter hammering away at a rock, and it looks like nothing's happening, and then after the 101st blow, the stone splits in 2, and he knows that it wasn't that blow, but all the blows that came before that did it. And, I just
when I first heard that poem, I was like, wow, that's just so true, that you just can feel like you're just beating your head against the rock and nothing is happening. And then all of a sudden, boom, like something clicks. Ooh, something opens up. Like you get to a deeper level. I actually had a weird thing in that the finals of the club championship, I actually broke out a brand new pair. I wear a lot of white, and I have these white Grayson joggers that I always play in, and I broke out a brand new pair of them, and I said, I think that I'm going to go to deeper levels today, and that I need to put on new pants, because there's deeper levels that I'm going to reach today. Kind of like there's a thing in the Bible about new wineskin, and that you shouldn't use old wineskins to hold new wine, because it'll burst it. And there's just something about that. But the reason why Pound the Stone is my favorite is just because Pound the Stone really deals with the real in life. It's dealing with heart posture. It's dealing with failure at deep levels. It deals with suicidal ideation. It deals with stuff that I've battled my entire life, and that's just not surface level stuff. So many people that write in my industry, they want to oversimplify things. They want things to sound really nice. They want to make things seem like, hey, if you do these 3 little steps, then in 7 days, you're going to have the results of a lifetime. And, and maybe that's happened for a couple people, but most of the time, that's not actually the case. And then what happens when you do those steps, and then in 7 days, things transform, and then a year from now or 2 years from now, you've gotten to a place where you never even dreamed possible, and you get to the top of the mountain, and then you look around and you realize, and you go, is this it? Is this it? I've worked with a lot of, Olympic athletes that I tried to tell beforehand that, like, I know that you think that winning gold is gonna change your life, but it's not. And it can actually get worse after you win, because whenever you lose, you have something to keep chasing. You have something to keep fighting for, and thinking that it's going to, if I could just get there, then everything's going to change. If I can just get that gold medal. One of the girls is like my little sister from UCLA women's basketball. She played on Team Canada, and, they lose to the United States a lot. And so finally in a big tournament, they won gold and they beat the United States. And I remember her coming back and just kind of the sheepish look on her face. And she was like, "You were right." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to be right, but it just feels so different when you lose. But then when you win and you get to there, it's just awkward. Michael Phelps thought about taking his life after winning 27 gold medals. There's times when you can get to the end and be like, this is it. This is what I was chasing so long and so hard. And that's why we write a lot about true mental toughness, of having a great attitude, giving your very, very best, treating people really, really well, regardless of your circumstances, because if you do that, then win or lose, you're not going to have sacrificed stuff that really matters on your deathbed in the end. But yeah, I think that what I really tried to do in Pound the Stone is just unpack a lot of the stuff that's just the real stuff in life. And then even the ending doesn't give people what they want.
That's exactly
the
right.
Kind of, leaves people hanging on a cliff. And I get messages every single day, that say, did he make the shot? And, and I'm like, I don't know. Did he? Did he make the shot? Like, it's not about that. And it was funny because when the first 3 books, I worked pretty extensively with a good buddy of mine who's a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he helped with a lot of the the story development and Chop Wood, Carry Water and Pound the Stone and the future of leadership. And so when we were talking about the ending, that was his idea of let's not tell him. And I was like, that so embodies. I was so glad that you said that, Jake, because that tells me that you understand my writing and philosophies better than just about anybody. That's it. That like, it doesn't matter whether he made or missed the final shot. What matters is the other stuff. And so, yeah, I think that's probably why it's my favorite book, because there's just so many aspects. There's the mentorship aspect of, these, mom and dad that kind of take the kid in, and, all the stuff that I wished I would have had, or the person that I've been in people's lives, just at that really, really deep level, and just not the surface level stuff that gets talked about in so many other self-help books.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to end about now. I think we've talked about 35 or 40 minutes, but I bet you would like to tell what your favorite story is, which I think it's been in almost every book, hasn't
it? Yeah, I could. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that one is I don't know if I want to end on that one.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
because I'll end on this, because I'll end on with Burn Your Goals. Because I think
that's good too, and that relates. Well, let me. I was going to do that too, and what the connection I was making about Burn Your Goals was making me think about the last two Olympics a little bit, right? What's her name? Who was the gymnast, right? Gosh, I can't remember.
Simone Biles.
Who had the yips, right? And then
Simone.
And Simone Biles. And then just yesterday, is it Maria Shiflin or whatever? She crashes, right? And everybody,
I didn't see yesterday's, but yeah.
Yeah, so she crashes. So, there's all this stuff that happens as the stress of everything at these high levels gets crazy, right?
Yeah.
And focusing on the concepts of Burn Your Goals helps a lot with that, doesn't it? Because you just do the best you can. You keep working to get as best as you can, and there you go.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think that it helps. And there's a lot of those athletes that I'm very grateful when they find my work, because there's so much to the contrary that's just BS that they're getting, their mind flooded with and their heart flooded with. And so I mean, the concept behind Burn Your Goals is that, John Wooden said that he never found somebody that can show him what you can do that's better than your best. And he never talked about winning with his teams. There's never a player on his team. He wanted to win, but he never talked about winning. He just focused on the process. And so, like I alluded to earlier with, instead of focusing on some arbitrary based outcome goal, focusing on something like true mental toughness, and the way, that we define that is have a great attitude, give your very, very best, treat people really, really well, have unconditional gratitude, regardless of your circumstances. And that way, no matter if you win or lose, you haven't sacrificed what really matters in the process. And what really matters in the process is people. But so the difference between what we say instead of a goal is that you should have a mission. And, the example I like to use is Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa's mission was to serve the needs of the sick and the dying. Now, if you break that down, a lot of people would say, well, that's, I'm becoming a doctor. My goal is to become a doctor because I want to serve the needs of the sick and the dying. And it's like, yeah, but the problem with becoming a doctor is that there's a lot of barriers and things that can get in your way during that process. You may not have the money for medical school. You may not pass the test. At many different points, you may have them say you're not qualified to do this. There's lots of people that can stop you from becoming a doctor. There's nobody that can stop you from serving the needs of the sick and the dying. That's something that you can always do. You can do that from prison. You can do that as Mother Teresa did in the slums all around the world with people that have leprosy. Like, there is that's the difference, is it's breaking it down to a controllable level of what is my mission? And I think the reason why people like goals is because goals allow people to shirk responsibility. They put that responsibility on somebody else's shoulders, that there's all these other people that can get in the way, versus when it's a mission, it's just, did I do this or did I not do this? Did I live this out? So I had where it really came from is I was a director of mental training for Oregon women's golf for a year. And one of the best players on the team, she sent me this picture of her goals. And I texted her back and said, I want you to burn those. She was like, what? Like, everybody tells me, that I should. And I'm like, no. So what are you willing to commit to inside of your 86,400 seconds every single day to close the gap between where you're at and where you want to be? What are you willing to sacrifice inside of your 24 hours a day to close the gap between who you are and who you want to become? I'm tired of everybody getting off on goal setting and setting these goals and the endorphins that come from that. Instead of, no, like, what are you going to commit to? That's it. What is 100% controllable that you're going to do every single day? What are you going to not do every single day that's controllable? That's the stuff of look yourself in the mirror. It's commitments, it's controllables. And then at the end of the year, at the end of the week, did you do it or did you not? No excuses. Did you do it or did you not? That's what you can control. And if you control the process and the stuff that is 100% controllable, then you're probably going to be pretty satisfied with the results that come. And the results are going to be pretty close to what they should be. And maybe that means that you blew your goals and expectations out of the water. Maybe that means that you didn't come close to those. But why set these arbitrary outcome-based goals instead of, let's exhaust ourselves, let's get in the arena, let's focus on the commitments and controllables and see what happens.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that I could win the club championship at San Diego Country Club. We have legends that play out of that club. We have Craig Davis, that won the U.S. Senior Amateur. Like, we have guys that are some of the best amateurs in America that play out of our club. Like, I never would have thought that was possible. But when I just went in and said, you know what, okay, I'm just going to go out here, I'm going to give this my best. And, I know that if I have my A game, sure, I can beat just about anybody. But if I don't, which you don't have your A game often, well, I don't know. It's a toss-up. But I just went in and I just focused on control what I can control, live out what's in Chop Wood, Carry Water, live out what's in Pound the Stone, live out what's in Burn Your Goals, live this stuff out the way that you've taught people, and just see what happens. And then, what ended up happening is I'm up 8 with 10 holes to play in the finals.
Pretty crazy.
I get to have fun. And I get to, enjoy it in a way that I've probably never enjoyed anything that I've ever, competed in my entire life, because I was so focused on do all the little things under your control right. And then I look up and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna blow this guy out of the water. I now get to, for the next 5 holes, just have fun with my friends and just enjoy this moment. And it was just so cool of, when you really do surrender the outcome, when you really don't focus on goals, when you really just focus on commitments and controllables, what actually is possible.
That was the perfect way to end, wasn't it? Yep.
Well, yeah, it's fun.
Well, I'm so tickled that you decided to do this with me, and there's a lot of people I know for sure that are going to get some great insights from what you shared. So, I'll put links in the show notes to your site, links to all the books are there. I actually bought another one today, and now I can't remember the one it is. I've got 4 of them, but I thought, well, why not? What's the other one? That's, the one about In the Dark.
Win in the Dark.
Win in the Dark, yeah.
Yes.
So after I finish Burn Your Goals, I'm going to read Win in the Dark. But you've done some great things, and thanks again for doing this with me and for letting my listeners hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your faithfulness to your podcast. I think it's amazing. I think you said 187th that you've done. That's incredible that you have stuck with this and continuing to, do what you can do to add value to the world. So I just want to encourage you to keep doing that. It's awesome and it's needed.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Well, Joshua, thanks again for doing this interview. Hack to Scratch is full of valuable ways to help golfers improve their golf games. And all of his books can help you improve your life and your golf. I put links in the show notes to where you can find out more about Train to be Clutch and also where you can purchase Hack to Scratch and his other books. My shout out today is about a fun activity I got to do over the past couple of weeks. A little over 2 weeks ago, because I'm a Carnegie Mellon University graduate, I got an invite to be on a webinar where a new meditation approach called EquiHealth was discussed. One of the EquiHealth team is Apollo Ono, the most decorated U.S. Winter Olympic athlete of all time. I found out they were looking for people to test the new meditation approach, and it's an app that has been developed. The process is different, but it's one I really enjoyed and I think I'm going to be able to use in the future. More on that later, but thanks, EquiHealth. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, well, why did I wait so long to do this one? I'll be interviewing 25-plus-year golf shaft designer and friend Robin Arthur, and we will talk golf shafts. Until then, take care and stay very, very safe.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com